Most people believe that a pedestal is built by the person standing on top of it. They assume that achievements, charisma, or sheer force of will elevate an individual above the crowd, forcing the rest of us to look up. But they are wrong. The pedestal is never constructed by the idol. It is engineered, funded, and assembled entirely by the insecure onlookers below. The reality of the world is deeply uncomfortable, volatile, unpredictable, and entirely indifferent to our plans. To cope with this chaos, humanity has spent millennia developing a desperate need for infallible saviors. We look for someone who appears to have the answers, simply to outsource the terrifying responsibilities of thinking for ourselves. In psychology, this defense mechanism is known as transference. When you see a legendary founder or a political titan, you don't see the individual. You see a screen for your own desires. Let's be entirely candid. You're not respecting the leader, you are using them as a psychological security blanket. You are transforming flawed flesh and blood into a monument of perfection just so you can sleep at night, comforted by the illusion that someone is truly in control. When you outsource your reality to an idol, you are paving the way for absolute disaster. To understand how deep this illusion runs, we have to look at how the modern market capitalizes on our blindness. The market rarely rewards reality. It rewards the perception of it. It mistakes the aesthetic of wealth for actual sovereignty. I call this optical grift. Consider a psychological experiment playing out on the tarmac of everyday life. Two identical Lamborghini pull up to the stoplight side by side. Engines roar, paint gleams. To the crowd on the sidewalk, these machines and their drivers are identical monuments of immense wealth and power. But let's look beneath the carbon fiber and audit the capital reality. Vehicle A is financed with high-interest debt, stretched over 72 months. The driver maxed out credit lines and depleted operating capital just for the down payment. It is a depreciating liability dressed in a supercar costume. One slow month and the bank repossesses the illusion. Vehicle B was purchased outright with unencumbered cash flow, barely registering on the balance sheet by resilient reserves. Yet, the crowd worships the visible glitter, entirely blind to the foundation. They assume the pedestal beneath the visible shine is solid granite, never suspecting that it is held together by duct tape and strategic borrowing. Let's look at a tech founder who maintains lavish optics, jets, events, branding, while burning runway on appearances rather than unit economics. Yet the market still projects genius. When you elevate a person or a brand solely based on optical outputs, you become the perfect mark. You fail to examine the compounding liability hidden directly beneath the fresh coat of paint. Nowhere is this optical grift more exposed than in celebrity culture. It's a masterclass in parasocial regression. Fans don't interact with a human. They worship a curated archetype projecting beauty, strength, and morality onto a stranger gifted at performance. The celebrity becomes their external anchor of perfection. But archetypes do not exist in nature. Humans do. When the icon reveals ordinary flaws, a mistake, crisis, or unpopular view, the illusion shatters. The outrage isn't truly about the celebrity. It's the sound of people mourning their own projection. They are furious that the lie they constructed to feel safe has collapsed. We laugh at teenagers sobbing over a pop star scandal, yet the identical regression plays out daily in boardrooms. The arena just shifts from a stadium to a corporate boardroom, yet the idolatry is identical. The most dangerous myth about the pedestal illusion is that it only infects the uneducated masses. People love to believe that once you reach a certain elite net worth, an Ivy League education, or a seat at the table of power, you become immune to cognitive bias. That is an incredibly expensive lie. The pedestal illusion doesn't disappear at the executive level. It mutates into a more sophisticated destructive format. The elite to elite trap. Imagine a brilliant mid-stage founder. She has built an exceptional company, generated tens of millions in revenue, and is a sharp analytical operator in her own domain. But the moment she walks into a room with a legendary venture capitalist or an old money tech titan, her psychology posture completely changes. She stops treating them as peers and begins looking up. And the moment you look up, you surrender your strategic sovereignty. You stop evaluating a human being with unique blind spots and start treating them like an infallible oracle. When you see an oracle, you accept their words as gospel. A peer forces you to challenge assumptions. An oracle convinces you that your data is wrong and their intuition is right. This is how multi-billion-dollar empires are driven straight into the mud. Consider a founder today facing a clear market shift towards leaner AI-native operations. Instead of trusting her real-time customer matrix, she overrides her own data on the advice of a celebrated industry legend who built his fortune 20 years ago. He pushes a bloated legacy expansion strategy that worked in the 2010s, but in today's tighter capital environment, it acts as a cash incinerator. The company burned its runways, missed milestones, and was forced into a down round sale. She didn't execute a flawed strategy. She executed a myth. She was too starstruck to realize that the genius on the pedestal was just a man who caught a specific wave 2 decades ago. When the elite to elite trap scales across an entire organization, it transforms into a corporate disease that kills more companies than inflation or competition combined. It can be called the legacy pedestal or the cult of the ancestor. This occurs when an organization takes its historical origin story or the blueprints of its iconic founder and turns it into a permanent, unchangeable monument. The past ceases to be the foundation you can build upon, and it turns into a rigid dogma that cannot be questioned. You can see this pathology in the literal corporate death rattle, but we have always done it this way. Think about the structural collapse of giants like Kodak or Polaroid. They weren't poorly funded organizations. They were titans staffed by world-class engineers. But they placed their historical success formula, the physical chemistry of film, on an institutional pedestal. They worshiped the ghost of their past achievements so intensely that when the wind of digital disruption arrived, they couldn't pivot. To abandon the old formula felt like blasphemy against the founders. Contrast this with their fiercest rival, Fujifilm. Fujifilm faced the same wall but audited their chemical expertise and pivoted successfully into healthcare and cosmetics, honoring capabilities, not constraints. If you are too busy praying to the altar of your past, a head-on collision with the future is inevitable. True excellence requires continuous adaptations, honoring the capabilities of your ancestors, never the constraints. The final systematic iteration of this illusion is the phenomena I refer to as institutional mimicry. This is the process by which medium-sized, mid-tier organizations systematically destroy their own unique advantages by copying the deep operational flaws of top-tier conglomerates. Why do they do it? Because they assume that if a trillion-dollar mega-cap company does something, it is backed by flawless godlike logic. Look at the waves of massive corporate layoffs or aggressive structural pivots that ripple through the tech and financial sectors every few quarters. A mega-cap tech titan facing internal bloating or trying to appease short-term Wall Street expectations announces a massive percentage reduction in workforce or abandons a core production line to chase an unproven trend. Instantly, dozens of mid-market companies who are not facing the same structural issues execute the same layoffs and pivots. They do it because the titan is on a pedestal and they assume that the titan can see a future that they cannot. When you practice institutional mimicry, you are acting like a captain of a mid-sized vessel who blindfolds himself and steers his ship directly into a rocky strait because he saw a massive supertanker turn that way. What the mid-market executives fail to realize is that the supertanker has enough hull thickness to survive a massive scrape with the reef, unlike their medium-sized ship. The Titan wasn't executing a masterclass in strategy. They were often reacting to an internal blunder, a political boardroom war, or a desperate short-term metric play. By copying the blind captain of a giant ship, you drive your own organization straight into the storm. When a team buys into a leader's myth, they stop building robust systems and start building cults of personality. This creates a fragile cliff. When the idol falters, the organization doesn't stumble. It faces an existential crisis of faith. Stocks crash, talent flees. No one was trained to operate without the oracle. But the greatest danger belongs to the person on the top. I call this the mirror poison. Surrounded by validation, you believe your own hype. You see a monument in the mirror instead of a human. You take catastrophic risks, forgetting that markets don't care about your legend. Operating under the illusion that your resume makes you immune to economic gravity, you start taking uncalibrated and catastrophic risks. We saw this in the post-2025 tech layoff waves. Mid-tier firms mimicked mega-cap playbooks without auditing their own reality. They were smaller vessels trying high-sea maneuvers that they couldn't survive. The pedestal you allow others to build is not a throne, it's your execution scaffold. The higher it rises, the harder you fall. Here's the final verdict of the mirror. If you want to achieve true strategic excellence in your business and complete sovereignty in your private life, you have to commit to a daily act of iconoclasm. You must smash every single pedestal in your environment. Stop looking for a savior in a suit and stop assuming a title guarantees clarity. Audit the substance of an individual's logic, not the price tag of their reputation. Separate the idea from the icon and analyze the data with total indifference to the myth. And if you're a leader currently standing on a pedestal of your own making, climb down immediately. Step away from the comfortable echo chambers of your worshippers and face the reality of your execution. Surround yourself exclusively with the outliers who refuse to be starstruck by your presence. The ones who value truth so deeply that they're willing to make you uncomfortable just to protect your excellence. In my next video, I will take this illusion of infallibility to its most catastrophic conclusion: personal conduct as the hidden CEO destroyer. We will dissect how unchecked power systematically erodes basic impulse control and why public empires are routinely liquidated by private lapses. Because destruction never actually starts in the market, it starts in the dark. I will see you then.